The morning of my son's wedding should have been the happiest day of my life. I woke up before sunrise, my heart pounding with excitement and nerves. I had ironed my pale lavender dress the night before, Ethan's favorite color, and laid out the pearl necklace his father had given me on our 10th anniversary. I wanted to look elegant, but not showy, just a proud mother ready to watch her only son start a new life. When I arrived at the grand church, the air smelled of roses and polished wood. Guests laughed and embraced, the sound of camera shutters clicking in every direction. I smiled at everyone who recognized me, though few did. Clutching my small handbag, I approached one of the ushers. "Excuse me, could you tell me where the family section is? I'm the groom's mother." He scanned his clipboard, frowning slightly. "Oh, yes, ma'am. Follow me." I followed, expecting to be led toward the front pews, the seats reserved for close family. Instead, he walked me all the way down the aisle and kept going, past the middle rows, past the cousins, past the neighbors. Finally, he stopped near the very back. "These are your seats, ma'am." I blinked, thinking he must have made a mistake. "I'm sorry. I think there's been some confusion. I'm Ethan's mother." He hesitated, glancing at his list again. "Yes, ma'am, that's what it says here." I looked toward the front. There, in the very first row, sat Lily's family, her parents, her siblings, even distant relatives. Her mother, Gloria, wore a sparkling blue gown and an expression of ownership, like she was the queen of the day. My chest tightened. I swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Thank you," I whispered as I took my seat as the ceremony began. I could barely see the altar. Heads and hats blocked my view, but I caught glimpses of my son, radiant, confident, beaming as he slipped the ring on Lily's finger. I waited for him to look my way even once, but he never did. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, everyone stood and applauded. I clapped too, though my hands trembled. Tears filled my eyes, not of joy, but of a deep, quiet heartbreak. As guests rushed forward for photos, I stayed seated. I didn't want to ruin anything. I just wanted a moment to breathe, to understand how I had become a stranger at my own son's wedding. And as I sat there, surrounded by laughter and music that didn't include me, one thought echoed in my mind. Maybe love has an expiration date, even a mother's. When the ceremony ended, the guests poured out into the courtyard, smiling and chatting, their joy echoing through the marble arches. I followed quietly, holding my small clutch like a shield. Everyone seemed to have someone. Families gathering for photos, couples linking arms, friends exchanging jokes. Everyone except me. I lingered near the last row of pews, pretending to check my phone, though the screen was blank. That's when I heard laughter, my son's voice coming from the front. He stood beside his new wife and her parents, posing for pictures. Lily's mother, Gloria, had her hand proudly looped through his arm, as if she were presenting him to the world. Ethan didn't look for me, not once. My chest ached with a kind of pain I hadn't felt since the day I buried my husband. I turned away before anyone could see the tears threatening to spill. "Excuse me," a deep, calm voice said behind me. I turned, startled. A tall man stood there, early 60s, perhaps, with silver hair neatly combed back and eyes that carried both. He grinned. "You look far too elegant to be left out, and I refuse to let that stand. Come on, before they start dinner without us." A strange warmth filled my chest, the kind that comes when someone shows kindness just when you've given up hope of receiving any. I hesitated, then slipped my arm through his. His hand was warm, steady. As we walked toward the reception hall, people turned to look. The whisper started again, but this time I didn't shrink. "Daniel," he introduced himself as we walked, greeted everyone we passed with a polite nod, his confidence radiating through me. At the entrance to the ballroom, the attendant stopped us. family or guests? Family, Daniel said firmly, his hand tightening gently over mine. Mother of the groom and her company. The attendant nodded and led us straight to a table near the front, close enough that I could finally see my son's face. When we sat down, Daniel leaned closer and said softly, "There now, that's better. No one should ever make a woman like you feel small." I stared at him. Words caught in my throat. I didn't know who he was or why he cared, but for the first time that day, I felt seen. I managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," I whispered, "for noticing." He lifted his glass slightly. "Two mothers, the ones who give everything and the ones who deserve to be remembered." And as the laughter and music filled the hall, for the first time that day, I felt something close to peace. The ballroom shimmered under soft golden lights. Crystal chandeliers swayed slightly as the guests found their seats, laughter bouncing off marble walls. Daniel wasn't finished, and because I believe such love should be honored, I'm making a donation in Margaret's name to a foundation supporting single mothers in need. I stared at him in disbelief. I hadn't known this man for more than a few hours, and yet in one toast, he had restored the dignity my own son had taken away. Ethan looked furious, confused, even embarrassed, but he couldn't say a word. When Daniel sat down, he whispered softly, "Now they'll never forget who you are." Tears filled my eyes. "Who are you really, Daniel?" He smiled. "Let's just say your son's company once asked for my investment. I declined back then, but tonight I think I found something far more valuable: integrity." I stared at him stunned. It was then I realized Daniel wasn't just kind, he was powerful, and tonight power had chosen to stand beside me. The days following the wedding were strangely quiet. The laughter, the music, the whispers, all had faded into memory. Yet one moment replayed in my mind over and over again: Daniel's toast, and the way the entire room turned to look at me, not as an afterthought, but as someone worthy of respect. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Then, one afternoon, a car pulled into my driveway. My son stepped out, anger written across his face. He didn't even knock. He walked straight into the living room where I sat with a cup of tea. "Mom, what happened at the wedding?" he snapped. "That speech. Daniel humiliated me in front of everyone." I stayed calm. "He didn't humiliate you, Ethan. He reminded people that..." Daniel Hayes. Ethan stared at the letter, speechless. "I accepted," I said quietly. "I start next month." He scoffed, but his voice faltered. You're working for him?" "I'm working for myself," I corrected gently. "For once, I'm choosing something that's about me, not just being someone's mother." Ethan looked down, guilt flashing across his face. "Mom, I didn't mean to..." I raised a hand. "You didn't see me, Ethan. That's worse than words. I've always stood behind you, but that day, you made me stand alone." The silence between us stretched. Finally, he said softly, "I'm sorry." "I know. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. Sometimes people need to feel what they've made others feel." He left soon after, shoulders heavy with shame. As I watched him drive away, I felt the strange mixture of sorrow and release. I hadn't planned revenge, but life, it seemed, had handed me justice in its own quiet way. Weeks later, Daniel called to check in. His voice carried the same warmth as the day we met. "How's my favorite advisor?" he teased. I laughed. "Still learning, but thank you for everything." He paused, then said gently, "You gave your son life, Margaret. I just reminded him who gave it." That night, I looked at the framed photo from the wedding, the one Daniel's assistant had sent me. In it, I stood beside Daniel, smiling faintly, chin lifted. Behind us, the hall glittered with lights. I looked confident, whole. I traced the edge of the frame and whispered, I may have sat alone that day, but I'll never be alone again. Because my sweetest revenge wasn't Daniel's toast or Ethan's regret. It was rediscovering the woman I used to be.